Okay, welcome back. So before we start writing more code to build up our scanner, we want to take a step back and look at what the source code will look like. So I have a valid program here, which is print hello world, and this is valid glux code syntax. And what we want to do, what our scanner will ultimately be able to do, is to take apart this line of code and break it into its different parts. So that essentially is what scanning is about. So if we take that line of code, you notice that it can be separated into 3 pieces. Each of those pieces is what we call a lexeme. Okay, and so a lexeme is simply a concrete instance of a token. And that, of course, begs the question, what is a token? And so a token is simply the smallest meaningful unit of a source program, which might sound a bit complex, but what it really means is what class does the lexeme belong to? So notice that the print is, of course, a lexeme, but it belongs to the class of keywords. Hello world is, of course, a lexeme, and it belongs to the class of literals. And the semicolon, which is, of course, a lexeme and used to end that line of code, is a separator. It belongs to the class of separators. So what our scanner will do is to break apart each meaningful unit. So notice it will look for P and it will keep going. If it finds an R, it will keep going. If it finds an I, it will keep going. And if it finds an N followed by a T, then it will say, okay, I have found something that is meaningful. Now, what is it? Well, it's actually of the class keyword. Okay, and so that's what we mean by the smallest meaningful unit of a source program. So again, every line of code will be broken down and it will be classified into its different parts, and we will also know the type, meaning after we break it down into a keyword, we will make sure to associate that keyword with the actual lexeme. Okay, so this will be sort of like a pair. Now, if that is still a bit confusing, I want you to think of an analogy. We can think of tokens similar to what parts of speech in a language is. So for example, when you started learning English, you learned what nouns are, you learned what verbs are, you learned what adjectives are, you learned what adverbs are. Those are your tokens. Those are the different ways that you can make a sentence. Right? And then, of course, when you start speaking, those are the actual lexemes. So, for example, if you say jump or if you say car, those are nouns and verbs, of course, but those are specific instances of nouns and verbs. And so we know that car is a noun, and we know that jump is a verb. And so that's sort of that pairing, okay? And so, for example, if I now look at this sentence, I am okay, full stop. In my mind, I have already separated that sentence into its different tokens. Right? I, which is a pronoun, am, which is a verb, okay, which is an adjective. Alright? And of course, full stop, which will tell me, well, that's the end of the sentence. Alright, so that will be our job going forward. We want to take lines of code and break them up into their lexemes and attach the token type to those lexemes. That's all the scanner is responsible for doing. With that out of the way, I'll see you in the next video.